Pixar nearly went bankrupt before it made a single film. Not because the ideas weren't good, but because nobody cared. The origin to Pixar's rise to fame is a tale of brutal setbacks, clashes of ego and ideas, and a faith in storytelling that borders on illusion. But somehow, a failing startup buried inside George Lucas's empire transformed into the most beloved animation studio on the planet. This is the inside story of how Pixar turned their failures into the future of filmmaking. But before we can get to Hollywood, we have to go back to 1970s Lucasfilm. In the late 1970s, George Lucas had just reshaped cinema with Star Wars. But he wasn't satisfied yet. Lucas was obsessed with pushing technology forward, and in the background, he quietly built a computer graphics division. Frustrated with the limitations of his time, his goal was to bring together as many great minds as possible in order to invent new digital production tools to be used in his live-action films. He delegated the lead position to Ed Catmull, a man with a dream to create the world's first ever computer-animated feature film. Under Ed, this team was staffed by brilliant engineers, artists, and programmers, and although these people had a love and understanding for animation, they lacked the know-how and skills to complete their artistic visions. Enter John Lasseter, a professional animator who, after landing his dream job at Disney, was fired for trying to promote and include computer animation into his works, being told by his superiors the only reason you would use computer animation is if it was faster or cheaper. And at the time, it was neither of those things. After meeting Ed, John landed his new position in the computer graphics team at Lucasfilms and seemed to be exactly the man the team was missing. A perfect blend of professional animation and computer graphics. However, ambition this high in the late 70s, like Star Wars, was science fiction. No one else believed it could happen. Computers were slow, animation was hand-drawn, and Hollywood didn't care about some guy in a lab making primitive avatars and backdrops. But Ed was determined to make his and his team's dreams come true. He brought in Alvy Ray Smith, a visionary from Xerox PARC, and together they built something nobody had ever seen before: tools for 3D animation. Their team created short demos, tiny moments of motion, light, and emotion. These weren't movies yet, but they were ideas. With the team's roster seeming near perfection and constant groundbreaking innovations being developed, it would have been a safe bet to say it was all uphill from here. But of course, life finds a way. In 1986, George Lucas, dealing with a divorce and sinking finances, decided to sell off the entire graphics division. Why? Because nobody wanted to invest in it. Some companies took an interest in it, but it would have been a huge leap of faith for them, and at the time, a crazy one at that. Ed and Alvy asked if they could spin off the division as a corporation before the sale, ensuring their team would stick together, thus finally creating Pixar. The question now would be, who would take the leap of faith and buy this company? Enter Steve Jobs. Fresh out of Apple, he was looking for new prospects to innovate and fund. After getting into contact with Ed Catmull, Jobs was hooked. He bought Pixar for $5 million, and then invested another $5 million to see what the company could really do. The Pixar team, reinvigorated, got to work, using their software to produce animated short films. Red's Dream, Tin Toy, and of course, Luxo Jr., becoming the first computer animated film to be nominated for an Academy Award, and with the lamp earning its legacy as the Pixar mascot. But here's the twist. Jobs didn't buy the graphics division just to make movies. He wanted to sell their hardware. Seeing the massive amount of engineering and programming talent on the team, Steve Jobs steered them in the direction of repurposing their magnum opus creation, the Pixar Image Computer, a high-end workstation they used to create their films, to instead be used by hospital and the military for medical imaging, weather visualization, and military research. With cutting-edge rendering capabilities, it could process 3D scans and visuals with unprecedented clarity. This seemed like the golden ticket to bolster Pixar's pockets and put them back in the green. But it failed. Badly. Despite the incredible capabilities of the PIC, it was also incredibly expensive. Over $170,000 per unit, and required highly specialized software most clients didn't even have. Pixar sold a handful to places like the Mayo Clinic and the US government, but it wasn't enough. The hardware market was crowded, and Pixar couldn't compete with companies like SGI or even cheaper PCs. In the end, the PIC was a commercial failure, bleeding even more money. But behind the failed hardware was something else. Soul. In 1988, Tin Toy won an Academy Award, and suddenly, Hollywood started to notice. Enter Disney. At the time, Disney animation was in decline. Hand-drawn films like The Black Cauldron had underperformed. The studio was searching for something new, something risky. A partnership between Pixar and Disney was formed. Disney would distribute and co-finance a Pixar film. Not a trilogy, not a franchise, but a singular film. Considering Pixar's financial situation and the olive branch that was Disney's funding and brand backing, this was Pixar's final opportunity to make a name for themselves and get out of rough waters. And it was sink or swim. Beyond the financial tensions, a lot was at stake for the prides and dreams of the Pixar team. It was Ed Catmull's opportunity to finally make the first computer graphic animated film, Steve Jobs' last call as he returns on his investments. And although observing from the sidelines, George Lucas's opportunity to see his vision come to life. They had the technology, and now the funding, but it was obvious from their endeavors of the PIC, they couldn't rely solely on their technological advantage for success. They needed that same soul that allowed films like Luxo Jr. and Tin Toy to land Pixar on the map in the first place. So Ed Catmull delegated none other than John Lasseter to direct the film. In 1995, after years of writing, rewriting, crashing software, and existential panic, that gamble finally paid off. Toys come to life when humans aren't around. That was the hook. The film? Toy Story. It was the first feature-length computer animated film in history, and it shattered expectations. Not just because of the tech, not just because of Woody and Buzz, but because Pixar had finally cracked the formula. Stories first, technology second. And in an ending nothing short of poetic, the award-winning film story is about Woody, a traditional Western kids toy who is threatened by Buzz Lightyear, a new futuristic toy. But in the end, they are united by their love of making Andy happy, much like Disney and Pixar. Despite their artistic differences, were united in, one could say, their love for entertaining and storytelling. This wouldn't be the last time Pixar landed itself into trouble. Even after this huge success and the blockbusters that followed, tensions with Disney and their contracts, leadership shakeups after the Disney acquisition, and even today with their current struggles at the box office and streaming services. But maybe that is the story of Pixar, a company that, despite its flaws and the hardships it faces, will always find a way to innovate, overcome, and try again. If you've made it this far, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and as always, thank you for watching.